Hello everyone and welcome to today's 30 Under 30 Google Hangout. My name is Laura and I will be your moderator for today's live chat. Today's panel will be discussing what preseason looks like for them and how to evaluate their players. As a reminder, you can always tweet in questions using the hashtag NSCAA Live, tweeting them at NSCAA. Before we get started, I'm going to go ahead and introduce our panel, or rather let our panel introduce themselves. Laura, let's start with you.
Hey there, my name is Laura Corrado. I am based out of San Jose, California. I am currently the assistant coach at Evergreen Valley College. It's a junior college here in San Jose. I also coach some club soccer. I have a U9 and a U12 team that I assist with. I've been coaching since I graduated high school. I went back, started coaching high school. I've been coaching high school about 8 years now, and at the junior college level for 5 years.
All right, great. Thanks, Jamie. How about you?
Hi, my name is Jamie Michoud. I'm the women's soccer assistant coach at Southwestern University in Georgetown, Texas. I'm also an assistant strength and conditioning coach there as well. I do coach in the youth game also with the Sting Soccer Club, and have my USSFA license and been coaching about 15 years.
Awesome. Thanks for joining, Jamie. Logan, tell us a little bit about yourself.
Yeah, my name is Logan Hoffman. I'm an assistant coach at the University of New Hampshire with the men's program. I'm just started here in March for my second go-around at UNH. I came here from the University of Wisconsin Green Bay, where I was at for 2 years. In total, I'll be going into my 6th college season as an assistant coach this fall. 5 at the Division I level, 1 at the Division II level. Also have worked extensively in the youth game, coaching the Development Academy with Seacoast United, and also running the New Hampshire Goalkeeping Academy.
Great, thanks. And Wes, why don't you tell us a little about yourself as well?
Hey everyone, Wes Lumnicki here, native of the Chicago suburbs. I actually coach here now at Elmhurst College, Division III institution, about 20 minutes outside the city. Came here basically from my playing career at University of Wisconsin Whitewater, so another Division III background as far as playing goes. But from a coaching perspective, been in the game about 6 years now. Coach on the club side as well currently, as well as my assistant job here at the college. I'm with Oak Brook Soccer Club, coach 4 teams there. Currently holding my premier diploma from the NSCAA.
Awesome. Thank you guys again so much for joining us. Let's go ahead and get started with the first question. I'm going to open this first question up to the group. What does your preseason plan, training-wise, look like to each of you? Let's start with Jamie.
I think we tend at Southwestern to follow sort of a standard periodization plan. We break down the intensity of our training and go through it that way. Unlike a lot of schools, we don't start with fitness testing on the first day. We feel that that's the best way to break down your players, and we don't want to do that. So we actually start out with 11v11 tactical trainings, and then give them a chance to kind of get their legs underneath them. And then as we go through our 2-week preseason, we incorporate the fitness testing, do some strength and conditioning in there as well, and then break it down into smaller position-specific tactics also.
Right. Logan, how about you? What does your preseason plan look like?
Yeah, so our preseason plan is going to change a little bit from year to year based on the personnel we have. You know, as far as the fitness testing aspect of it, we're a little bit unique as well, simply because your fitness requirements depend largely on your position, not just, you know, goalkeeper is an obvious example, but even your center back compared to your center mid or your center forward, they're all going to be doing different types of running, different types of activity. So having kind of standardized fitness testing, we don't really feel is accurate in terms of whether or not a player can do what he needs to do on the field successfully. So we actually tend to do baseline testing throughout the year, to get a feel for where our players are at a normal level, at a normal fitness level. So we will do baseline testing at some point in time during preseason, usually within the first couple of days, just to figure out where our guys are at, if they're at the level that they should be at for their personal fitness levels, or if they're low, or if they're, you know, really fit. But beyond that, you know, it's really going to depend. If we have a lot of young players, we may be focusing on different aspects of the tactical game than if we've got a really experienced team that's senior heavy, that knows what we expect tactically and what we're looking for. So it is going to vary a little bit year to year. But generally, there will be, on a day-to-day basis, we'll have one technical session that's intensive in terms of technical skills. We'll then have a session that's more tactical based, and then obviously we'll break that down from all the way from 11v11 down to 2v2 tactics if we need.
Right. Wes, how about you?
Yeah, going along the lines of what Logan was speaking about, it depends year by year based on who we have in our program. For instance, this coming year we're going to have about 7 or 8 seniors, so it's a pretty old team. Our guys have been around, they know the drill. So in essence, we're really balancing what we're doing. We're not doing as much fitness this year, any type of testing, because it's almost expected out of a 22-year-old college athlete that they're going to come in fit. If they're not, well, we deal with that when the time comes. But the balance of what we're doing during the day is basically a 2 field session to 1 classroom session. Most days we will have 1 type of classroom session, and that's, again, geared towards some of the younger guys so that they can learn to be soccer players off the field as well, being able to understand what we're trying to get out of video sessions, being able to understand how we break down opponents and how we scout games. Because if we get to game number 1 of the season and they're not understanding how to implement a scouting report into a game, that's going to be difficult for us to hit the ground running at the start of the season.
Mm-hmm. And Laura, do you have anything else to add, or what does your preseason plan look like?
Our preseason plan, similar to Logan, we also do some baseline testing throughout the season just to see where our players are, make sure they are fit during the season. But we usually just begin with some endurance training the first week or so, and some small-sided games, 3v3, 4v4, and then we just continue on from there.
Perfect. All right, our next question, I'm going to throw it back to you, Jamie. And from there, I'm just curious as to how do you evaluate or identify a potential starting lineup, or the way your players are going to play during preseason?
I think that kind of, like Logan and Wes said, depends year to year. For us at Southwestern, we had a very large incoming freshman class last year, and then this year we're going to have the same. So I think for us, in large part, it has to do with being familiar with the players that you have that are returning and knowing what their strengths are, and then also having done your work through the recruiting process and knowing what kind of strengths you're getting out of the players that are coming in. So if we're able to evaluate those players effectively, we can kind of have an idea of what we would like, and then as we carry on through preseason, evaluating them in different scenarios, kind of seeing who really shows up. Obviously, fitness is a component of that, so if some of our star recruits come in and they're not where they need to be, then we have to reevaluate what our plan is. But as a coaching staff, we have a preferred system of play for what our style is, but we adapt that based on the personnel that comes in year to year. And then, of course, as you go on, maybe somebody proves you wrong, maybe somebody proves you right. But basically, that's kind of how we take it. We take what we already knew, hope they can show us something different, and then evaluate and kind of progress as it goes along.
Right. Cool. Great. Laura, next question's gonna go to you. How does your preseason training break down in terms of fitness versus tactical and versus technical training?
Being at the junior college level, we do have a high turnaround of players every 2 years. So it really depends on who we've recruited, who's walking on every season, basically. We do, if you break it down in percentages, about 25% fitness at the first week or so, about 50% technical, and about 25% tactical, where we are introducing our system of play to the new players. About 25% of the time we spend the last half hour or so of practice just going 11v0, showing them a new formation, new style of play to these drills. But we will spend the first 2 weeks introducing their endurance to them, and then breaking it down into some agility, strength training, very low strength training at the beginning during preseason. And just based on the girls who we get, if they're in shape already, then we can go into a little more speed, agility type training. But as I said, we never know what we'll get when they come into preseason, so we need to vary it every year.
Right. That kind of actually goes perfectly into our next question, which, Wes, I'm going to direct to you. How do you make sure your players are physically and maybe even mentally ready entering preseason?
I think that's actually probably the most difficult thing for a college athlete, is those 3 months in the summertime when they're not engaged with the team and when they're not being told where to be at a certain moment.
Right.
A lot of them go home and they have jobs. Specifically at our program, our roster represents 13 different states. So we don't see many of our guys in the summer months. What we've kind of done over the last couple of years is my number one job in the summer, as far as from our team's perspective, is to try to keep tabs on the guys, give them a phone call, shoot them a text message every couple of days, ask them how it's going, give me an update of your U23 team or your PDL team, or those type of things that you're expected to go home and be a part of, whether it's your respective club that you came from, or maybe you sometimes have to travel to find that level of play. You know, our freshmen, one of the hardest things for them to do going into their sophomore year is to understand now what it takes to play at the college level. So they have to constantly search out maybe a better team than what they came from, or on the next level up, where they might not necessarily be a starter on that summer team, but at least they're training with higher level players than themselves. So, you know, a lot of times as well, some of our guys will come work camps for us in the summer. We do a number of camps here in the summer months, and it's a great way for them to get back on campus, get together, do fitness after our sessions are over with the youth players that we run camps with. So it takes being creative, and it takes really trying to be diligent, staying on top of the guys. And it's really the only way to do it from my perspective.
Laura, can I add something to that, Laura? Yeah, I mean, I do think the summer teams are an important aspect of it. You know, we work really hard to make sure all of our guys are placed with teams. That's obviously a little easier for me than it probably is for Wes, simply because of the level that it's easier for me to call up a summer league coach and say, hey, I've got a kid at the University of New Hampshire, than it probably is for Wes at Elmhurst to do that. You know, so. But finding those places for them to play, whether it is a PDL team or whether it's just a men's league team, you know, obviously in some of the bigger metropolitan areas, there's some good men's leagues that still have high levels of competition, and that game fitness is something, like I said, that I think is key. You know, and it's different by position. So the other thing, you know, a couple other things we'll do though. Number one, I think having competition throughout your roster is huge. You know, for us and the way we play, you know, I don't think there were back-to-back games here at UNH last year where the same starting 11 took the field in back-to-back games. Simply because we do a lot of scouting and we break down a lot based on, you know, what the opponent can do and what we can do, and we'll exploit it. You know, we have very few what I would consider complete players, and I think that's true across the college game, because if they were, they probably wouldn't be here, at least not at a mid-major to start. Now, hopefully guys are leaving our program as a lot closer to being complete players. But so we have to evaluate our players based on their strengths and their weaknesses, and then fit them into the spots as needed. But that competition, knowing that they're always fighting for a starting spot, that they're always trying to do that, really kind of, for our guys, is kind of what pushes them to work over the summer too, because they know that if they don't come back fit, they're automatically out of that equation. But if they come back fit and ready to play, then even if they're the 24th guy on a roster, there's a chance that they could be starting a game. So I do think that's key. We also set up a leadership team within our guys. So we get six guys from across the spectrum. So usually it's 3 seniors, 2 juniors, 1 sophomore, 1 freshman. And then we assign them a group within our team of 3 or 4 guys that they're responsible for connecting with all summer long, kind of doing what you do, Wes, as you said, where you'll make phone calls to keep track of the guys, except we use this internal kind of leadership team to do that.
Yep. And I'll add one more thing to that. You know, we call it our big brother. We call it our big brother program. Is exactly how we do it, and it's exactly the same, and it's worked brilliantly. And the last real thing we do is the guys are all getting their summer packets with, you know, the lifts that we do in the off season and those type of things, where, you know, it's more so for the younger guys that don't quite recognize what it's like to be a college athlete in the weight room. It's a way for them to get a head start and understand what it takes at that level. Our older guys are going home. They've got their programs. They know how to go about it as far as from a fitness and weightlifting perspective. But our younger guys, it's about getting them up to speed as quickly as possible.
I think if I can add just one tiny little thing, I think you know, it's different across the levels. You know, different divisions have different rules, and for us at Southwestern, it's a Division III program like Elmhurst, and you know, we're limited in the amount of ways that we can check in on them over the summer. You know, I can't say, hey, Laura, did you do your weight training today, and things like that. So I think what's been really successful for us has been making a diligent effort at creating a culture in our program where that is a priority, so that our players go home and they know that it matters to them. And we've prepared them throughout our spring and off season with our full-time strength and conditioning staff, and teaching them the things that they need to know, and then expecting them, kind of like Logan touched on and Wes touched on, to connect with the incoming players, but providing them with all of those resources and making them like that part of it, I think makes it that much easier to ensure that they come in fit and ready to go.
Right. Perfect. Well, thank you guys so much for all chiming in and giving your input as well. Actually, Logan, this next question is also going to you. When in the season, or should I say, when in the preseason, do you start introducing tactical play, whether it's set pieces or position-specific play? How early in the season does that become a part of your session plans and your training process?
We'll get into tactical stuff from day one in preseason, simply because, as I said before, the way we play at UNH, we won't play the same formation all season long. We may change 2 or 3 different times, and it's all based on scouting. One of the advantages you do tend to have at Division I is video. That's not always available at Division II or Division III, simply because of a resource difference. So every opponent that we play, we have video probably from 2 or 3 different games that they've played throughout the year. So there's not really many surprises, but it also allows you to treat it more of, at times, kind of like they do in the professional game. They'll break it down. They'll look for, whether based on what the team's done before, whether you can play 3 backs and push more guys high, or play 4 backs, or so it just depends. So we'll change a little bit, but because of that, from day one, there's always going to be general tactical principles that we'll want to impose, regardless of what formation we're playing. There's going to be a certain way we want to defend as a team. There's going to be a certain way we want to attack as a team. There's going to be certain areas that we're always going to be trying to exploit. So we'll address those from day one of preseason. Try and make sure that the guys understand these general principles that will always apply to our team, regardless of formation, regardless of personnel on the field. So that happens from day one in preseason.
Right.
Set pieces. Set pieces, again, because of this ability to view video and things like that, our set pieces will change game to game for a couple of reasons. Number one, teams watch our set pieces, so if we have success in the previous game, they'll know what to expect. So we've got to have some mix up. But it's the same. We'll watch a team and how they set up defensively for a set piece, and we'll set up to see if we can exploit that by what we do, what areas we target. So you have to be flexible. So set pieces, really, we address on a game-by-game basis, and that includes in preseason. We won't really touch on that until, to be fair, the first game, the first preseason game, we may not even address set pieces prior to it, because you've got a short amount of time. We probably have less than a week before our first preseason game.
Oh, wow.
And so you've got a lot of other stuff to cram in there. The set pieces is kind of a less important thing. Now, it's really important by the first game of the season, so you kind of have to prioritize there. But we will address it, 2-3 times before every game as we're preparing throughout the week for set pieces.
Yeah, definitely. Just a reminder to all our viewers out there, if you have any questions, please tweet them to us at NSCAA using the hashtag NSCAA Live. With that said, I'm going to get to our first Twitter question we have, and I'm going to open this one up to the group as well. That is, what is maybe the biggest mistake you've seen other coaches make, or coaches can make, going into preseason? Maybe that has to do with the expectations you have coming into preseason, or training plans, or anything else you've seen other coaches struggle with. And Laura, I'm going to come to you first for this one.
Probably one of the biggest mistakes is at our level, maybe overtraining. You see players coming in first preseason game. They look tired, not out of shape. They just look tired, like they've been doing too much work, haven't been getting enough rest, can't make it through the entire game. So you need to really be careful as a coach how much you're training your players. Sometimes, we have double days. You need to realize where their fitness level is, and there's only so much training, so much fitness you can do with these players before they'll start burning out. And, if you get them too tired at the beginning of the season, by the end of the season, you're looking at injuries. Even mid-season, you're looking at injuries, overtrained players, maybe not even wanting to be out there on the field.
Right. So burnout is probably something you need to be aware of.
Right.
Yeah. Jamie, how about you? Any mistakes or any things you would advise against coaches taking on during the preseason? Or
I think Laura hit it perfectly. I think in our soccer culture in the United States, at least when I was growing up and playing in college, we ran our butts off the first day. It was all this fitness testing the first day, and then you're dead for the rest of your 2 days of preseason. So just like Laura said, I think the dangers of overtraining are definitely something to watch out for. And I would say, another thing that's maybe a little less physical, but from a coaching standpoint, is having too much of a preconceived notion. You've got this rising senior player who's been your go-to person, and that person doesn't always show up the way they're supposed to in their senior year. And so I think it's important to, to give everybody kind of a fair shake at the beginning of the season. I tell all of our recruits as they come in, I don't spend hours and days and weeks and months recruiting players to have them come and sit the bench for 3 years until they're a senior. I expect them to come in and show me something. So I think by the same token, you have to have the same expectations of your returners, and they don't get anything just for showing up. They still have to do the work. So I think, the dangers of overtraining is a big mistake, and then the dangers of getting too comfortable with your leadership can also be a mistake.
Definitely. Wes, how about you?
I think there's two things for me. I think, number one, at a college level, you got to be flexible as far as preseason goes. We talk about overtraining. We talk about burnout. I think a lot of it, too, is taking the temperature mentally of the team. I think sometimes if you go through a rough preseason game and you're still in that preseason calendar, or you have a couple back-to-back sessions where it's 100 degrees out and the guys are buried, well, you got to be flexible and you have to be able to change your schedule around. I mean, I remember one day last year it was 95 degrees back-to-back days. We had to get certain things done in those days, and we had another session planned for at night. They weren't going to be able to even make it through a warm-up at that point. Well, we had to be flexible. We took them to the pool. We had them mentally kind of reset and kind of relax and understand that it is all a process. There's a lot to be said about a curriculum, especially at the youth levels, but I think at the college game we have to be flexible just because of the length of our season. We can't afford to bury our team in the first week of preseason because you're playing catch-up then for almost a month with getting guys back to full health and those type of things. And I think the second thing, for me from a leadership perspective, is sometimes over-reliance on your older guys, as Jamie was just kind of saying. You have a mindset and you have your starting lineup in your head going into the fall, and hopefully that involves a lot of older guys. But I think the environment has to be competitive in the preseason. Those younger guys coming into your program have to feel that they are important and that they have a chance, and you have to make that the environment for them. So, even if you're going to be starting 6 seniors, you got to have those guys plugged in at certain moments. Maybe a preseason game, you're starting 3 or 4 freshmen that have proved themselves. That'll kind of dangle the carrot for the guys, if you will.
Definitely. Logan, did you have anything else to add to that topic?
Yeah, I mean, a couple things that come to mind for me. Number one is trying to do too much in terms of coaching. Like I said, preseason to the players sometimes seems like a really long time. They are doing 2 sessions a day. They're constantly on the field. But from a coaching perspective and trying to accomplish things with your team, it's really not that much time. If I have a preseason game, 5 days into preseason, really it's 3 hard days. I've got to give them a rest day, and we've got to go over some tactical things preparing for the game on the 5th day. We can't work them to it. So when you look at that over the course of a 2-week preseason or 2.5 weeks, depending on where you're at, it's not that much time, and I think a lot of coaches try and cram too much information, too much into that time, and really you don't end up getting even as much out of it because of that. You really I think have to prioritize your training and figure out what's the most important thing to cover now and what can be covered as you go on. Like I said, we kind of do that with set pieces. The first week we won't even touch them a lot of times before the first preseason game, but there's other things as well. You've got to figure out what you need to be ready for the first game, and what can you work in as the season goes along, so that by the last game, the 20th game, you're in full stride and you've gotten everything done that you need to. The other thing is understanding, being realistic with your expectations, and also never really getting too high and too low from a leadership perspective as well. My head coach here at UNH likes to say that he always thinks his team stinks going into preseason, and that's his way of just making sure his expectations are at the right level. Is kind of his way of saying it, because if his team goes out and wins a preseason game 5-0, well, it's easy to say, oh, my team's doing really well. but is that really where they're at, or is that just where the team's at that moment in time? And I think that's true, because I think a lot changes from day one to the last day of the season. So making sure you kind of are able to stay even keel and really take in everything is key.
Right, definitely. Well, I think that's about all the time we have left for questions. I want to thank all of you panelists for giving your insight. It was really interesting, and hopefully a lot of people learned a lot from it. Before saying goodbye, I want to remind everyone that it's not too late to register for the Summer Symposium this July 31st through August 2nd in Orlando, Florida. See the likes of Shella Simon, Tony DeChico, and Donna Fisher also have the opportunity to earn a number of different diplomas being offered, including our special topics diploma focused on attacking and defending principles, the NFHS NSCAA Professional Development Certificate, as well as many, many more. Be sure to check all that information out and register at nscaa.com/symposium. Once again, thank you to our panelists. Thank you to our viewers. We appreciate your time, and definitely keep an eye out for future live chats coming up. Thank you guys so much, and have a great day.
Thank you.